Welcome back, everybody, to our deep dive. This time we're looking ahead to 2025 and all the financial trends that are going to really, reshape things. It's like we're getting a sneak peek into a financial sci-fi movie when you read some of the source material.
It really is.
Mm.
And what's fascinating to me is that these trends are not just these big abstract, market shifts.
Yeah.
They're going to directly affect how we earn, invest, and think about money in our daily lives.
Yeah, for sure. And, one that's really caught my eye is sustainable investing. It feels like it's become so much bigger than just like a feel-good niche.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
For a long time, there was this idea that if you wanted to invest ethically, you had to sacrifice returns. But the data is actually telling a different story.
Yeah.
Companies that focus on those environmental, social, and governance factors, the ESG factors, are often outperforming, their counterparts.
Okay, so there's real financial weight behind it now. But help me understand this. Why are ESG-focused companies pulling ahead like this?
Well, there are a few things happening. One is consumer demand. People, especially younger generations, they want to support brands that align with their values, and that translates into real market power for those companies. And then you've got the regulatory landscape. Governments around the world are making stricter environmental policies, which puts businesses that haven't adapted at risk.
So it's not just about good intentions anymore. It's actually becoming like a smart business move. Can you give me some specific examples of how this is playing out?
Sure. Look at Tesla. Their commitment to renewable energy and those electric vehicles has made them one of the most valuable car companies in the world. And then there's Patagonia with their focus on sustainability and fair labor practices. They have this incredibly loyal customer base and a really strong brand that helps them grow even when the economy is uncertain.
Those are great examples. I'm starting to see why this isn't just a passing fad. All right, let's shift gears a bit to something that I'll admit still feels a bit like the Wild West to me, digital currencies and decentralized finance. Every time I try to understand it, I feel like I'm reading a sci-fi novel.
I get that. It's definitely a big departure from how we're used to thinking about money. But the technology behind it, blockchain, it really could revolutionize so much more than just how we use currency.
I've heard that term blockchain so much, but I'm still not sure what it is. Can you explain it and how it connects to these new currencies?
Imagine a digital ledger that keeps track of transactions, but instead of one central authority like a bank holding it, it's spread across a whole network of computers. That makes it incredibly secure and transparent. That's blockchain in a nutshell. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, they use this technology to create a decentralized system for exchanging value.
Okay, so instead of going through banks, everything's handled by this network. But what does that actually mean for me in my daily life? How does this change how I manage my money?
That's where decentralized finance DeFi comes in. It's about building financial applications on top of blockchain. You're cutting out those traditional middlemen like banks and offering faster, cheaper, and more accessible services for everyone. Think lending, borrowing, even insurance, all running on this decentralized network.
So potentially lower fees, faster transactions, it sounds good. But I have to ask, what are the risks? What are the downsides here?
You're right to be cautious. It's still very new, and with any new technology, there are risks. Cryptocurrency is known for being volatile, and since it's not fully regulated yet, there's more potential for fraud. And the tech itself is complex. You really have to understand how to manage your digital assets safely.
It sounds like there's a lot to learn and be careful about for sure.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to trend number 3. This one feels a little closer to home, AI-driven financial services. I'm picturing my own personal robot financial advisor helping me make smart choices. Is that too far-fetched?
Maybe not as far off as you think. We might not have robots in suits yet, but AI is already changing how we manage our finances. We're seeing it with robo-advisors and those AI-powered investment platforms, and they're getting more advanced all the time.
Okay, walk me through this. How is AI actually being used in these services, and what does it mean for the average person who's trying to manage their money?
These platforms use algorithms to analyze tons of financial data, find trends, and make personalized investment recommendations based on your risk tolerance and goals. They can automate things like rebalancing your portfolio and even optimize your taxes, all with lower fees than a traditional advisor.
That's amazing, especially for someone like me who's always short on time. Are there any specific platforms you'd recommend people check out?
Definitely. For those new to robo-advising, Betterment and Wealthfront are popular choices. They're easy to use and have a lot of investment options. If you want something a bit more sophisticated, Alpaca and Kavood have tools for testing strategies and analyzing the market.
This is really helpful. It feels like we're on the verge of a major shift in how we handle our finances.
It is a shift. And it's not just about the technology itself, it's about what it enables. This increased accessibility is so important as we move into a future where financial literacy is more crucial than ever.
That's a really important point. In a world where things are changing so fast in finance, it seems like understanding the basics is more important than ever. But where do you even begin with that?
You're absolutely right. And it doesn't mean you have to become a financial expert overnight. It's about building a foundation, understanding the basics of budgeting, saving, investing, and debt management. And luckily, there are tons of resources out there to help.
So, what would you recommend as a starting point for someone who's feeling a little overwhelmed by it all?
Books are always a good place to start. The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey and Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki are classics that offer practical advice and a new way of thinking about money. You can also look for workshops offered by local organizations. They're often free or low cost. And of course, there are tons of online courses from places like Khan Academy or Coursera.
Those are all great places to start. It seems like there's something for everyone's learning style. All right, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's talk about a trend that's close to my heart: the rise of flexible work. Remote work and the gig economy are changing how people earn a living. But I imagine there are unique financial challenges that come with that.
Yeah, you're right. The shift towards flexible work is exciting, but it also requires a different way of thinking about money. We're moving away from that traditional 9-to-5 job with a steady paycheck, and that can be tough to adjust to.
So, how do you navigate this new financial landscape and not just stay afloat, but actually do well?
The key is adaptability. You need budgeting strategies that can handle changes in income. Think about creating an emergency fund to cover those slower months and make a realistic budget that accounts for the fact that your income might vary.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there any tools or resources you recommend specifically for managing money in the gig economy? It seems like traditional budgeting might not be enough.
There are some great apps designed for freelancers and gig workers. Lilly and Capital, for example, have features like automatic tax withholding, expense tracking, and income smoothing. And don't underestimate a good old spreadsheet. It's still really helpful for tracking your income and expenses and getting a clear picture of your finances.
These are really helpful tips. It's fascinating to see how these four trends we've talked about, sustainable investing, digital currencies, and DeFi, AI-driven financial services, and now flexible work, how they're all connected. It's creating this financial world that's more dynamic and complex than ever.
You're exactly right. And that complexity is why we're doing this deep dive to help you understand these trends and not just survive, but thrive in this new financial world.
Well said. And there's one more trend we'll be digging into in the next part of our deep dive. So make sure you join us as we explore the changing world of financial education and why it's so crucial now more than ever.
You know, it's interesting how all these trends we've been talking about, they all kind of point to this bigger shift in how we see and interact with money. It's not just about transactions anymore.
Yeah, I like that idea of it being more than just transactions. It feels empowering, but it's also easy to feel a bit overwhelmed by all the changes. Where do we even start to get ready for what's next?
That's where financial literacy comes in. It's more than just understanding like the nuts and bolts of money. It's about developing a whole mindset, a way to look at the financial world critically.
So it's not just about balancing a checkbook. It's about thinking critically about your finances and making smart choices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing that financial literacy is a journey. It's not something you just learn once and you're done. The financial world is always changing, so you have to keep learning.
You mentioned things like books and online courses, but what about for people who learn best by doing things hands-on?
That's a great point. Don't underestimate the power of community. Local workshops are great for that. They're often hosted by community organizations or banks, and they give you a chance to actually interact with experts and ask questions.
Yeah, those workshops can really help build confidence too, which I think is a big hurdle for a lot of people when it comes to money. Okay, let's go back to one of the trends we talked about earlier, flexible work. We talked about the challenges, but I'm curious about the good stuff too. What are some of the opportunities that come with this shift?
One of the biggest benefits is the potential to have more control over your time and how much you earn. Freelancers and gig workers, they can often set their own rates and choose projects that they're really interested in and good at. That can lead to more job satisfaction and potentially even higher income than a traditional job.
That freedom is definitely appealing, but I imagine there are some downsides too, like not having a steady paycheck and benefits.
You're right about that. That's why having a strong financial safety net is so important if you're going to do flexible work. Having a good emergency fund and understanding your expenses are crucial first steps.
So it's about planning ahead, almost like building your own safety net. And I imagine taxes can be tricky when you're not getting a regular paycheck.
Definitely. One of the biggest adjustments for a lot of freelancers is managing their own taxes. They have to set aside money for self-employment taxes and make estimated payments throughout the year. It's a learning curve for sure.
It sounds like there's a lot to learn, but the potential rewards, both financially and in terms of lifestyle, are huge. Okay, we've covered a lot today, from sustainable investing to digital currencies, AI and finance, and the changing world of work. But I think it's important to zoom out a little and look at the bigger picture.
I agree with that. What we're seeing isn't just a bunch of random trends. It's a fundamental change in how we think about and use money. Technology is a big part of it, of course. But it's also about changing values, a greater focus on social and environmental impact, and wanting more control over our financial lives.
It's like we're entering this new era of finance, one that's more personalized, more dynamic, and definitely more complex.
Exactly. And that complexity is why financial literacy is so crucial. It's
Mhm.
about giving yourself the knowledge and skills you need to make sense of this changing world, make smart decisions, and really take control of your financial future.
That's a powerful statement. And it leads us to the fifth and final trend we're talking about today, the evolution of financial education itself. It seems like people are realizing that the old ways of teaching about money aren't enough anymore.
You've hit the nail on the head. That old model of just teaching people how to balance a checkbook or budget, it's not enough anymore. We need a more holistic approach that looks at the whole picture, not just the mechanics of money, but also the psychology and emotions behind how we make financial decisions.
So it's not just about numbers, it's about understanding our own relationship with money and how our feelings can influence our choices. I'm really interested in this. What are some of the new, more innovative ways people are teaching and learning about finance?
We're seeing a move towards personalized learning experiences, like AI-powered platforms that figure out what you know and don't know about money and then give you custom content. There's also a lot more focus on financial coaching, where you work one-on-one with a professional to create your own financial plan and build good money habits.
Having that personalized support can make such a difference, especially for people who might be intimidated by all the jargon or feel overwhelmed by how much information is out there.
For sure. And there's also this growing movement to make financial literacy part of school curriculums, starting from a young age. If we teach kids about money early on, we can empower them to make good financial decisions their whole lives.
That's so important. It's about setting kids up for financial success right from the start. But what about those of us who didn't learn about finance in school? Is it too late to start?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old you are or what your financial situation is, there are always resources and opportunities to learn more about money. The key is to take charge of your learning. Look for information and be open to learning new things.
I love that message. It's never too late to take control of your finances. You know, it's amazing to see how all five of these trends we've talked about, sustainable investing, digital currencies, and DeFi AI and finance, the rise of flexible work and the evolution of financial education, how they're all connected. They're creating this picture of a financial world that's rapidly changing and really complex.
And that complexity is exactly why we're having this conversation today. We want to break these trends down for you, give you the knowledge and tools to navigate them, and empower you to make smart decisions about your financial future.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how these trends might impact our lives in the years to come. What's the one thing you think our listeners should be ready for as we head into 2025 and beyond?
Hmm. That's a tough one. It really is like trying to predict the future.
Right.
But if I had to pick one big takeaway from all these trends, it's that being adaptable is going to be more important than ever.
Adaptability. Okay,
Right.
I like that. But what does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, it means being open to new ways of managing your money.
Hmm.
Whether that's using those AI tools we talked about, getting involved with digital currencies, or even, rethinking that traditional 9-to-5 job and going for something more flexible. It's about being ready to learn new things and adapt as the financial world changes.
So it's not just about like chasing the latest trends, it's more about having a mindset that's open to change and sees opportunity even when things are disrupted.
Exactly. The people who succeed in the future of finance are going to be the ones who are flexible, informed, and take initiative.
That makes sense. And it really highlights how important everything we've talked about today is. Understanding sustainable investing, making sense of digital currencies, and of course, realizing how powerful financial literacy can be.
I agree with that. All these trends we've talked about, they're like pieces of a puzzle. And when you put them together, they show us this picture of a financial future that's both really exciting and a little bit daunting.
Definitely both. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. What's one question they should be asking themselves as they try to navigate these trends and figure out their own path forward?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing to ask yourself is, what does financial well-being really mean to me? Because it's different for everyone. Once you know what you're aiming for, you can start making decisions that align with your values and your goals.
I love that. It's not just about having a lot of money, it's about making your finances work for your life. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. So remember, the financial world of 2025 and beyond might seem a bit like uncharted territory, but you've got the knowledge and the tools to not only navigate it, but to really thrive in it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of finance. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep striving for your financial goals.